Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third offering of a series of webinars of Cordillera Textile Project, or CordiTex. You can turn off the music. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third offering of the series of webinars for the Cordillera Textile Project. Last time we had Christine Müller from the Dresden Ethnological Museum in Germany and G. Rojas from Glasgow University. And last month we had Rossi from the Tivoli Group in Mindanao. So today we are fortunate to have Marlon Martin with us. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Save the Ifugao Rice Terraces movement and also one of the founding members of the Kiyyangan Weavers Association in Kiangan, Ifugao. So I would just like to share some notes. I'm currently at the University of Michigan and to participate in the Recollect project of the University of Michigan, led by Dr. Deidre de la Cruz and Ricky Punzalano. So we would like to share a brief some photographs from our current research at the University of Michigan, where we also found some of the Cordillera textiles, specifically from Kiangan, Ifugao. So these are some of the inladang blankets from the Tomlinson collection, now currently at the University of Michigan Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. So we also invited some weavers to look at the textiles. So here are some images from this morning. We look at some of the ikat textiles from the repository at the University of Michigan. So these are some of the textiles that we found from Ifugao. So to further contextualize the discussion on the Ifugao textiles, we would like to welcome Marlon Martin, who will talk about the role of the Inabol, or the textiles in Ifugao culture. Okay, Marlon?
I'm unable to start my video. Host?
Would you like me to share from my screen?
Yes, I cannot go on video because it says here you can start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, hold on. Rose, can you please double check?
Sir, can you try again po?
There.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think it would be better if you be the one to share the video, Doc Ikin. I mean my PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm Marlon Martin from the Save the Ifugao Terraces movement. We organized, SITMO organized the Kiyyangan Weavers Association in 2016, though the organizing started way back about 2012, mainly for purposes of trying to revive forgotten textiles of the Ifugaos. Of course, it expanded to something else, but we were able to recreate textiles from long ago that are no longer being woven these days. Can you go to the next slide, Doc? So the Ifugaos basically made use of cotton to come up with their textiles. So we call it kapo. Not to mistake this with kapok, That's kapok is a different material. Kapo is the Ifugao term for cotton. So the Ifugaos used to have two kinds of cotton. The wild cotton that's planted mainly on hillsides or on the peripheries of their muyung or their forests, and even in their backyards. And we had the other type, which is we're still looking for it. It has gone extinct in the rice terraces. It used to be part of the rice cycle. They plant them during the fallow period. It has like a 6-month you plant it on the first month after the harvest, and then you harvest it. You harvest the cotton up right before planting season begins. So we have here in the photo Apugayon, who passed away 2 years ago, probably our last cotton hand spinner. So we make use of the tobayan, or it's a basic tool in among indigenous Southeast Asians. It's used to turn the cotton into yarn. Next slide. And of course, we also use kinage or bast fiber. This is from plants that Ifugaos gather from the rice fields, or even from the forests. This is of course rough, as you can see. You can see the stiffness in its texture on the photo on the right. It's mainly used now as for costumes during community festivals. Like this one, this boy is using it for some fashion show competition, I think. Only a few villages in the Manawe area are still making use of bast fiber as for their yarns. Cambulo, Pula, and a few other barangays in the Mayuyo area still make use of this bast fiber. We have another material, actually, the bark cloth. But of course, it has become obsolete since the introduction of ready-made yarns from the lowlands. Next slide. So Ifugao textiles are traditionally woven on the backstrap loom. Again, it's the traditional loom, not only in the Cordilleras, but also all over the country and in the Southeast Asian region. Even in the South American countries would have backstrap looms that are very similar to what we're using here. So you have bamboo tubes, hardwood pincers. Mainly the trees used for the lumber used for this one are from hardwood trees. So the belts on the lower right corner that's where the loom got its name, no? So you use backstrap. So the backstrap loom is also called the body tension loom. So the weaver controls the tension of her threads by pulling on the warp. So ito nasa likod niya to. Next slide. So this is how they make use of the different parts of the backstrap loom. So this one is in the weaving of ikat fabrics. So you can see clusters of thread warped along the entire warp of the weaver. Next slide. And then another example of how the the different parts of the loom is used by the weaver. So this is very common actually. This the backstrap loom is very common in the Asia Pacific region, but only a few communities still maintain using it. Most of our weavers now, especially those doing market production, make use of the European upright looms, or in the Cordilleras we call it tilar. Next slide. So Inabol is the term we use to refer to our woven textiles. So they are mainly woven on the backstrap loom using different design techniques, particularly the binodbodan, or we're more familiar with the term ikat. And then niliha or supplementary warp. This is also called among the Ilocanos pinilian. Although in Ifugao, pinildi is also a term to refer also to the niliha technique. And then the balud, supplementary weft, and plain weave or kinulhudan. We'll go through this individually as we go on. Next slide. So the binodbodan, it looks like, well, the most unique, well, in the Cordilleras at least, there's been a lot of areas where the binodbodan or the ikat technique became extinct. No, there are no practitioners already because of the tourist trade in especially in the Banawe area. The binodbodan technique somehow remained, but lacking the cultural context that it used to have, especially in the Kiangan culture area. So it was mainly the Kiangans, the Ifugaos of Kiangan who made use of ikat fabrics. Next slide. So what bod means to tie, binodbodan means that which was tied, in reference to tied patterns on warp threads. So ikat, which is a Bahasa term, Bahasa Indonesia term, ikat means literally the same thing as binodbodan. Ikat has also cognate terms in Ifugao, particularly among the Kalangoya speaking areas where they call it iket. It means the same thing, to tie. So patterns are placed on the thread before weaving. So you see here a photo of clustered threads where the weaver would tie the parts that would create the pattern. So the patterns, or you can see if you look at your ikat textiles, all the figures or the patterns there are placed while the material is still in its thread form, not when it is woven. Next slide. So ikat basically it's a weaving, it's a dyeing technique. So it's resist dyeing in English. So you see here how we do it these days. The warp threads, the tied threads, the binodbodan threads are dyed, making use of some weavers still make use of natural colors, while most would simply use ready-made dyes. The dyes you buy from the store. So here you see the process of how the ikat fabric is made. Once it is dyed, it is then rewarped on the loom. Then the weaving proper begins. Ito medyo masalimuot yung the ikat technique is the most complicated in among the different design techniques. Some are where the ikat weavers are experiencing this dilemma actually of dwindling buyers, because there's this, we have Chinese merchants, not just Chinese, even Filipinos are starting to print our ikat fabrics. So you have these rolls and rolls of fabrics from Thailand and from China bearing Cordillera patterns. These are printed. You would know if it's ikat because the patterns, there would be no wrong side on the cloth. So it's back to back. The pattern should be back to back, compared to printed ones where there's a wrong side and there's the right side. Next slide. So here you have examples of ikat fabrics that our organization have been weaving in the past. So a lot of you can actually come up with thousands and thousands of designs when you're using the ikat technique. Next slide. And then we have the niliha or the pinili. It's a supplementary warp technique. So coming up with those patterns on the textile should mean using adding the number of warp threads, different colored warp threads. For in this case, for this particular Kiangan skirt, the supplementary warp thread would be white. So the main warp are black threads, and then the weaver would just pick on the supplementary white warp threads to like draw the design on the fabric. So you can commonly see this in many Cordillera textiles actually, the niliha or the supplementary warp technique. Next slide. And then we have the balud or the supplementary weft. It's commonly seen in the belts of women or in funerary textiles like the pinagpagan, the pagpag part. The third photo would be the pagpag design on a funerary blanket. The one in the middle would be these are designs found on women's belts. And the first photo is a contemporary creation by our weavers. Now this is the balud technique. Next slide. And then of course we have the kinulhudan. Well, kinulhudan literally means stripe. In our old belief system, kinulhudan is the father of all gods, the father of the weaver gods. So basically this is the most ancient of the oldest form of designing fabrics. Of course, it's also the simplest. So here you see a warp with a ginalit skirt being woven. So you just see plain stripes in the kinulhudan fabrics. Next. So the Ifugaos traditionally wove blankets, skirts, loincloths, bags, and belts. So wala pang mga table runners noon. So these are the traditional textiles, not just among the Ifugaos, but all over the Cordilleras. Next slide. So blankets. Blankets are common among the Ifugaos. So these are indicators of social status and also a badge of identity. You would know where an Ifugao comes from by the blankets that they're wearing. Just the same as when you can actually, well, at least in the past, you can recognize somebody from Banawe or Mayuyao or from Kiangan basing on the fabrics that they are wearing. You can see here photos of the Ifugao Pinutian to your left and the Inladang blanket to your right. These are very old blankets. Actually, they've run out of they're out of fashion. Nobody's wearing them now. We only have like 2 or 3 remaining elders who would be using the kinutian when they die. So yeah, basically these are funerary textiles in the past. We're just recreating them now for purposes of for our weavers not to forget how to come up with this with the patterns on this. So these two samples actually were recreated by our weavers, making use of old photos, archival photos, which written by missionaries or early ethnographers who came to Ifugao in the early 1900s. So I think these copies are at the Museo Cordillera. Next slide. This is the bayaong. This is the very typical blanket among the Ifugaos of this generation. So you can see every time we have festivals in Ifugao, or every time Ifugao performers would be on stage, even outside the province, most of them would be wearing this blanket. Well, of course, traditionally this is a blanket for the Kadangyan or the elite, but it has become the standard Ifugao blanket these days. To your right, you can see a Mumbaki wearing the bayaong blanket. So most of our Mumbakis would perform rituals making use of this blanket. It's also how we honor our guests, actually. So if especially now, politicians who would come to the province would be male visitors would be given this blanket. It's a prestige blanket, and it marks the Ifugao as a people. Next slide. And these are gamong blankets. Every time we talk of funerary textiles or burial textiles, we would be mainly referring to this gamong blankets. The one on the left is called aluntung, and the one on the right is pinagpagan. They look similar. They have basically the same patterns, but it's the number of designs, especially the pagpag, the one in the middle, that would determine the status of the person who died. So most Ifugaos, if not all Ifugaos, are still buried with at least one or both of these blankets with them. So it's a passport to the afterlife. Somehow it persisted up to this day, even though all Ifugaos are Christians now. Every time one of these would still be put on top of the coffin. But the religious symbolism of this one would be that your ancestors won't be able to recognize you if you go to the village of the souls. So if you're not wearing the blankets that they wore when they passed on, then they wouldn't be able to recognize you as one of their own. That would make you a lost soul. So you have to go back to the land of the living in Ifugao and then ask the living for one of these blankets. And it would be very expensive for those for your living relatives, because they would have to hold another funeral. Now it is rare that these blankets are worn by the living. For instance, this old man from Asipulu. This photo was taken in the 1950s. He's wearing a pinagpagan blanket. Yes, he's a Kadangyan and a renowned Bumbaki during that time. And only if they reach this certain age and status in the community that they earn the right to wear the pinagpagan while they are still alive. Most of us commoners would only wear it when we're dead. So these are the gamong blankets, funerary blankets. We also share these blankets with the Ibaloys. So the Iboloys also make use of these ones, but not necessarily as funerary textiles. Even among the Kankanais of Mountain Province and Benguet also make use of the pinagpagan, they call it the dilli. Next slide. And other form of textiles among the Ifugaos, of course, would be the toge or the ampuyo. These are wraparound skirts worn by women. So here you see a photo of Auntie Virginia, one of our master weavers, weaving an ikat skirt. To your right, two of our members of our performing arts group wearing traditional Kiangan ikat skirts, binodbudan. If it's dyed, if this particular skirt is dyed making use of mud from the rice terraces, because there's this certain mud. It's not just any mud, no. There's this very dark mud which they get from the rice terraces that they use to dye cotton. Then the fabric would be the skirt would be called pinuyok if it's dyed with puyok or mud from the terraces. So of course, ikat skirts, ikat wraparounds are only worn by the Kadangyan. The ikat is basically an elitist fabric. Next slide. These are different variations of the Ifugao skirt. So there are skirts with plain stripes. There are skirts with patterns on them, making use of niliha or ikat or plain weave. So it's much easier to identify where an Ifugao woman comes from if they're wearing their traditional skirts. The Kiangans and the Asipulus would wear similar looking gamit skirts. The first photo to the left, either in liniha or in ikat. For the second skirt is the niliha. The third one is basically the binayaung, following the patterns of the bayaung blanket, and it's more commonly worn by in the municipalities of Dagawe, Hingyon, Banawe, and some even parts of Kiangan. The blue skirt would always be identified with the Mayuyaw women. Next slide. There's a missing photo there.
Does not appear the other photograph.
Yeah, another photo is not appearing. Although this is an old archival photo from the early 1900s of Kiangan women wearing a gamit skirt. Can I go to the next slide? Oh, there. And this one for women from 1910 wearing the first photo to your on the right, in the upper photo. This was a photo from one of Barton's books of Ifugao women wearing the ginarit skirt or the striped skirt. Now this is the only true Ifugao skirt, because all women from Kiangan to Asipulu to Mayuyaw to Lagawe to Banawe, Pungduan would be wearing this. This is the typical Ifugao skirt, oftentimes referred to as the nawotwot skirt, which is not true, of course, because it's not for the poor. It's just the standard Ifugao skirt. So not only it's not only worn by the lower class, it's also worn by even members of the upper class. So this is the only true Ifugao skirt because it's not exclusive to one group of the Ifugaos. There you see here the progression of how the patterns are still very consistent. Of course, the shades, the color of how they're of the fabric would be different from say 100 years ago, like the first photo, because they'd still be using natural dyes during that time. And the second photo with the girls wearing the ginalit and with the like they call it the lamma, or these are blouses. These were students or pupils of missionaries. So they were required to wear the upper garment, commonly referred to as the lamma. It's basically the Ifugaos, or like other Cordillera groups or Southeast Asian groups 100 years ago were topless. And then we have the third vintage photo from about the 1940s. High school students. Yeah, this is just after the war. As you can see, this is just an old school building in the background, destroyed by the bombs during the war. So these are our grandmas wearing the ginalit skirt. And then of course the two colored photos would be this was just taken like 2-3 years ago. Our teachers from the Kiangan Central School and members of our Ifugao Performing Arts group, all wearing the same skirt that their ancestors have been wearing since time immemorial. Next slide. And these are also women from our performing arts group wearing the gamit skirt. So this is the gamit, especially if it's woven in ikat, are mainly for the upper class. They have two versions. The women standing at the back would be wearing the gamit skirt woven in niliha or pinili. And the seated women are wearing the gamit skirt with ikat as the design technique. Next slide. And we go to what the men wear. It's the binuhuran or wano, bahag. So among the Ifugas, it's exclusively worn by men. So again, like the skirts of like the women's skirts, the Ifugao loincloths are also identifier indicators of which ethnic group Ifugao belongs to. So each municipality or each ethno-linguistic group would have their own their loincloths. And the first two photos are funerary loincloths of the Kiangan and Asipulu peoples. These are actually narrow strips of ikat bahags. Accordingly, it's the loincloth of their ancestors. This strikingly resembles the Isinay loincloth actually. Now the Asipulu people are just a mountain away from the homeland of the Isinays. So perhaps this would actually be a connection to the Isinay people. Same thing as the Kinutian. The next two loincloths would be that of the Kiangan people. It's dominant black in color with the red stripe in the middle. Now most Ifugaos, if not all Ifugao loincloths would have the wide red stripe in the middle. Even if you're making use of the Mayuyaw loincloth, which has a dominant blue color, the red would still be there in the middle. So there you can identify from which if the person is, if an Ifugao is Ayangan, Kiangan, Tuali speakers. They're from Mayuyao by the colors or the patterns of the fabric of the loincloth that they are wearing. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. So these are men during the Punok festival in Hapa wearing their loincloths. So now, of course, you rarely see any Ifugao wearing his loincloth as a regular daily attire. No? It's only during festivals or special occasions that we wear them. Next slide. And Ifugaos also wear weave the mayad or the barco. These are belts. They are exclusively worn by women. Now the photo to your left would have a pattern. It's an 8-pointed star. The star is the only true fertility symbol of the Ifugaos. It's exclusively worn by women. You know, as because women are mothers, and the multiplicity of stars connotes a lot of children. Now, in the Ifugao pantheon, we have like more than 2,000 gods, and the stars are one of them. The Tinalo, or the gods, the star gods, apparently are prayed to by our ancestors for them to have more children. Of course, like everyone else, children are seen as well. Everyone else in the past look up children as, you know, the more children, the more prestigious a family is. So the star is the only true fertility symbol of the Ifugaos. To your left, the first photos with an arlot, mainly used in the Kiangan areas, and similar to those worn by the Bontoks. Next slide. These are the balco belts, which is commonly used now. It mainly comes in two patterns. The first one, the star design, the binituon, and the second one is with the hinaribubu, or the asola fern design. So the haribubu these are floating ferns that you see on the rice fields, and it can cover an entire area. So again, multiplicity or a sheer number connotes you know, having lots of children. And yes, exclusively worn by women. Next slide. And then we have the bags. These are Barton. Barton would refer to this as pocketbooks. The butong, especially if that's worn by men. The first photo would be in Kiangan, we call it the pinuha, cut-like. And then the second photo would be the ambayong, or the hip bag for women. And we have the ributan. These are small bags where you put your betel tube ingredients. It's basically three types of bags that the Ifugaos wear. You can see in old photos of Ifugaos, the men would always have their pinuha or their butong bags. Women mainly make use of their ambayong, or for ceremonial purposes. Next slide. Symbols and meanings in Inabol patterns. Most Ifugao most Ifugao, especially those woven in ikat and niliha, would always have these patterns that these are not random creations of the weaver. These designs have been handed down from generation to generation. And now most weavers wouldn't even know the meanings of these of the symbols that they weave on their fabrics. But basically, our fabrics bear the symbols of the gods. Now, this is a very complicated topic which would require another hour. So I'll just go over them generally. Can you go to the next slide? So most of the symbols that the Ifugaos weave on their textiles are representatives of their ancestors and then the gods that they pray to. Anthropomorphs, or the tinagtagu symbol, represents the ancestors. You can see here the human figure, and it's always found in blankets, in skirts, and even in loincloths. And you also have diamond patterns, diamond twill patterns that are you call it the hinulgi. It's actually a combination of different patterns. For those the hinulgi pattern used in death blankets, you can see a series of like X's and diamonds. And if this is also common in the Cordilleras, actually, you can see the diamond twill pattern in the weavings of the Ibaloy, the Bontocs, and the Gaddangs. This among the Ifugaos, the basic form, we call it the fernwood pattern, or the kinatibangran. If you look closely at the fernwood, you would see like lozenges or diamond patterns on its. And the Ifugaos use that to symbolize their ancestors, or the time of their ancestors. Now, this interpretation is common not just in Ifugao, but also, again, in the Asia-Pacific region. Among the indigenous Taiwanese, the diamond patterns represents the eye of the ancestors. Same thing with the Gaddangs, the minat mata, or the eyes, the ancestors. For the Ifugao, the kinatibangran, or the fernwood, represents sorry, the ancestors, or the time of the ancestors. Curiously though, the fernwood, the giant fern, is actually the oldest living plant in our area. It's Precambrian. So perhaps the Ifugaos know that these plants existed during the time of the ancestors. So that's why they're making use of the patterns that you can find on the wood. And it's a common motif. The fern is also used as a tattoo symbol, but mainly for making use of the leaves. So we make use of the leaves of the fern. It would be inapapaku, or like the leaf of the fern tree. But if you make use of the wood, the patterns you see on the wood of the on the trunk of the fern, then you call it kinatibanglan. Both refer to the ancestors. You can see here like a shield, in the second layer, the shield, or the hinapio, kalasag. This is a symbol of the Macnongan gods, or the protector deities. So there's this family, or a group of benevolent gods among the Ifugaos. They in the Asipulo area, they call them the Inumban, or those who cover you with the baby blanket. So these are good gods, benevolent gods, and they protect the Ifugaos from danger. And then you see here this like a symbol that looks like an S. It's actually the symbol of the great deceiver. We call him the Manahaut. So why put the symbol of the deceiver in your fabrics? Because in the old belief system, it's practically a balance of good and evil. There's no such thing as heaven and hell, or Satan versus the angels. Like there has to be a balance of the good gods and the gods that can cause you harm. Even in the performance of rituals, you would have to offer sacrifices, not just to the benevolent gods, not just to the gods of war or the gods of peace, but also to the great deceiver. So it's an entire family of malevolent gods. This Lambrecht, in his book on Ifugao weaving, gave like very rough an English translation for this symbol. It's called the symbol of the beheaded. So the beheaded can only mean the participation of Manahaut. And then of course symbols of agricultural gods. You see here, like it looks like on the second level and third to your right, it's looks like a candy though, but these are actually two mortars. We call it rinuhung, or the mortar design, representing the agricultural gods. So the Ifugaos are basically rice farmers, and of course we have a very complex rice culture. So most of the gods of the Ifugao should be, if not gods of war, then be gods of agriculture. And then this like the helix type, actually a combination of call it the tiniktiku or the inurog. These are symbols of messenger gods. In the performance of an Ifugao ritual, the first group of spiritual elements that are invoked are the ancestors, because if somebody is going to help you, then the first ones to help you would be your family. So yeah, the ancestors. And then we have these go-betweens, these messenger gods. In its simplest form, it would be like lightning, like flashes of lightning, as in the messenger. So Baguio actually is one of the messenger gods. They travel fast from Ifugao to the sky world. So they bring your supplications to the superior gods, because you don't pray directly to the gods of war, to the gods of agriculture. You need the messenger gods to bring your offerings or your prayers to them. And then we have, of course, the 8-pointed star. We mentioned this earlier. One is very always present on women's belt. The star gods, the fertility gods. Next slide. All right, so those were traditional. Those were the traditional textiles of the Ifugaos and their uses. Now, it is becoming an issue how traditional textiles are being used inappropriately. Not just outside Ifugao. Actually, there would be others who would be wearing them in a different way within Ifugao province. And they can become controversial. Actually, we have this new issue on cultural appropriation, making use of traditional fabrics as an expression of contemporary fashion. And of course, you don't blame designers or even non-owners of the culture to be wearing them, as loincloths or as wraparound skirts. well, they look beautiful. So one would be tempted to convert. If you don't know that it's funerary, then you turn it into a tablecloth or a bed cover or a gown. So to the Ifugao, you'd be like a walking dead. But of course, it's important for one, especially when you're buying traditional textiles, that you it's you understand the cultural context, and to avoid this seeming disrespect of the culture of the owners, not just for Ifugao fabrics. In the fashion world, a lot of big fashion houses are actually being called out because of their so-called cultural appropriation. Gaining so much from traditional designs. Anyway, in Ifugao, we're trying to show people that even using the traditional process of weaving, we can actually come up with contemporary designs that would suit whatever a designer wants. So you see here young Ifugao boys and girls wearing on traditionally woven fabrics, of course, very much rooted on traditional on our traditional textiles. So they can be made into gowns, into and we change the colors. We disarrange the patterns, then they wouldn't be strictly the traditional blankets or skirts or loincloths that we have. So there, the photos courtesy of Ifugao Nation. So we're as a way of because weaving basically is it's an economic enterprise. Our weavers do not weave just for the sake of conserving our traditional patterns. The economics would always have to come with it. And as most of our weavers are also farmers, these are the backstrap loom is the more ideal way of for them to continue weaving, because they can every time they're free from farm labor, or they all the tasks in the terraces would have been done, then they can go into their weaving. So all this, what these young people are wearing now are actually all woven on backstrap by Ifugao farmer weavers. Next slide. There at our center, we try to make younger people understand the cultural context of our traditional textiles, but at the same time make them appreciate their heritage in general. The only way for traditional weaving to continue is for the younger people to see the importance or its significance to them as a distinct culture. So because they don't teach this, of course, they don't teach this in the classroom. You don't see Ifugao textiles on Philippine textbooks. It's only by with the community members helping their young people realize or appreciate their own culture that we make these things be passed down. There are moves, especially in indigenous people's education, for weaving to become part of the curriculum. In Ifugao, they're just starting. I think they started in Kalinga as part of practical art, something for their pupils and their students to learn their weaving. So there, textiles speak so much about our past. It doesn't mean textiles are only things of the past. This can actually be useful items at present, especially for farmers, especially for weavers. Kaya huwag kayong masyadong barat pag namimili kayo ng woven textiles. These are handmade. And then weavers don't weave to become rich. weavers weave so they can send their children to school, so they can earn extra from their regular jobs. So these are labor of love, kumbaga. There, we have questions here. Are the blankets ever washed? What is the best way to clean these ikat textiles, preserve the color? Of course, they're washed. And especially for the blankets that we make now, make use of factory dyed threads, and it comes in different materials. It's not just cotton, and cotton is hard to come by actually. So most of our fabrics would be making use of polyester or combination polycotton. Of course, you wash them like your regular cloth. Ikat would be the, I think, what is the best way to clean these ikat textiles to preserve the color? Because these are artisanally dyed, although we make use of color fixers now. So mas matibay siya actually, I mean the color. The basic rule for ikat, not just Ifugao ikat, is to do hand washing, making use of very mild detergent, and air drying. Do not expose this to the sun. So air drying lang siya. You can actually make wash it in your washer using the lowest strength, mild washing. And then, where in Ifugao do you usually source cotton and natural dyes? Oh, we buy them in Manila. So cotton comes from PTRI. We also work with the HABI, the Philippine Textile Council. So our cotton, because we also want to we make use of we want, the Philippines is trying to revive its cotton industry. During the American period, we were exporting cotton to the United States, and then we stopped. Mainly because of disease, and the production became very expensive. So for Philippine cotton threads, it's only now again that they're trying to revive it. So we have small cotton farmers in the Ilocos, in Aklan, in Negros, and they're only producing for the local market. So, and like the last batch of thread we had came actually from Antique, I think, yeah. And so this small group of cotton farmers are producing for this small group of Ifugao weavers. We no longer produce our own cotton in Ifugao. Natural dyes, we still have a lot of natural dyes, especially when we're doing like making use of leaves, barks, or roots. But the weavers from groups in Abra are actually producing powdered indigo. And also we have Mindoro. They also produce powdered indigo, and other they sell natural dyes in its powdered form. So it's a huge network of natural dye producers, cotton producers, and weavers. So this actually makes everything for our ikat fabrics 100% Filipino. You see, Philippine cotton, natural dyes, and Ifugao weavers. There. What are your thoughts in traditional textiles being used in New York Fashion Show? Edi wow. We're actually, there's a lot of controversies every time a popular person would make use of some indigenous woven fabric. That's actually good, for at least for me, as for Ifugaos. It's nice to see actresses wearing something that we created. As I've said, well, at least for Ifugao, we only have like 23 sacred textiles. You don't have to buy them. We have 1,000 more which you can buy, and which you can sew into something else. So what's wrong with for as long as they don't use our funerary textiles as their gowns during the New York Fashion Show, then I think everything is good. Everything is okay. You know, we would be very proud to watch on television supermodels wearing our Inabol, our woven fabrics. In fact, we're working with the organizers of the Philippine New York Independence Day celebration, and we're providing textiles for a fashion show that they're going to do during the Independence Day this June. So it's nice for as long as the designers know how to distinguish what is sacred from what you can make use of commercially. And we produce a lot of fabrics now, unlike before that we only make use of traditional fabrics. So it's okay for and of course it helps a lot. Most of our weavers actually, most of our buyers actually are from the fashion industry. So they're a big help to our weavers. And every time, I think it's also the responsibility of weaving organizations to educate our designers or our buyers in general if they sell fabrics to them. So there are fabrics in the Cordilleras where it has its own exclusive use. You need to explain that to the buyer or to the designer that you cannot make this into a gown, or you cannot make this into something else aside from its traditional form and traditional use. So there you go. Yeah, all right. Any more questions? None?
Thank you,
Thank
Marlon,
you.
for that. I have just two questions about, of course, we know that in northern Luzon, I think only the Ifugao have maintained the production or the research on the ikat. Is there a plan to register this under a geographic indicator or patent in our government sa IPOFIL?
Actually, yes. We've had initial talks with the IBP. Actually, I wasn't here when they were here, but they gathered weavers and they discussed about the benefits of registering all these. We cannot possibly patent them because these are traditional designs, but under our new registration systems, we should be able to do that. Now, of course, there'd be a lot of issues that would arise for this registration thing. Recently, we had quite a controversy with the Kalingas, who claimed to have registered some distinct patterns they said with the NCCA, though I doubt if the NCCA has a system of registering designs. Now, we do share a lot of patterns and symbols in the Cordilleras, and it wouldn't be fair if one group would just register the pinagpagan, for instance. Can the Ibalois just register it, like under them as a GI when the Ifugaos are also using them, or the Kankanaes, and the diamond patterns being used by the Kalingas, the Ifugaos, the Gadangs, and everyone actually. So I don't know. I think it's more of registering the traditional fabrics, like the gamit skirt, for instance. So if the Kiangan produced have that registered as something that is uniquely Kiangan, then because you see a lot of Ifugao patterns being used now by weavers outside Ifugao, which is sometimes it gets offensive actually, because weaving is also becoming more and more popular, and to come up with new designs, a lot of weavers would copy designs of other groups. In fact, among our weavers in the Kiyyangan Weavers Association, there's this because we have more and more younger weavers becoming part of the organization, and hello, nag-google yung mga yan, especially with ikat. In ikat is, it's all over the world. And then they can relate with the ikats of Indonesia, the ikat of say Thailand or Cambodia. And sometimes you would see a lot of their weaving na lumalabas yung mga, "Oh, this doesn't look like Ifugao." And then you ask them where they got the pattern and they say, "Oh, it's in Google." So we also need to educate our weavers as to, there are things that are prohibited by, there's no law actually that explicitly says you cannot copy this design or this design, but it's a matter of ethics, especially now that our fabrics, this traditionally woven fabric from Kababuyan in Hingyon in Ifugao suddenly is in New York, and of course with social media nakikita yan ng lahat na and then what if this weaver from some small village in Kiangan copies fabric from Indonesia courtesy of Google Images, and then this fabric goes to the Paris Fashion Week and it is announced as Ifugao, and the Indonesians would see that and they would say that the Ifugao is actually copying something that is culturally theirs. So the world is getting smaller, but there's no limit to creativity. So that's what we keep telling our weavers, that you don't really have to copy things. The mind has no limit. If nakanganga ka, nag-imagine ka, imagine mo na rin lang ang de-design mo, di ba? So we encourage them to come up with something that's more rooted to their own traditions, to their own culture. So you can see most of the products of our weaving organization would be, it looks very contemporary, but you can also see the Ifugao elements in it, the color, the patterns that they use. So yeah, what was the question? You're on mute. Nakamute ka, Doc.
Thank you, Marlon. Okay, we have more questions from Rocky Kahigan on board. Is this concerned with the sacredness and non-sacredness of textiles shared among the Ifugao community?
Oh yes, of course. It's not just Marlon's idea. Sacred in the sense that it has its exclusive use, especially for funerary textiles. These are sacred in the sense that you cannot just use them you cannot use them for any other purpose actually. So if the pinagpagan or the lumtung blankets if you see them available on the stores, you know that it's only for the dead, and all Ifugao should know that. Sometimes also you have this there's this general feeling among Ifugaos that if these particular patterns or colors of the pinagpagan blankets are used for something else, it's like, it's that blanket for the dead. So there's this sense of dread over these things, which actually an indicator of it still being functionally sacred to the Ifugaos. I have this story. One time I was bringing a group of weavers, all weavers, senior weavers to Manila. So we were going to ride a bus, and this bus came from Banawe because it has to pass through Kiangan. And a group of tourists, Europeans actually, were seated in the last seats of the bus, the long one. And they were all wearing this, the pinagpagan blankets that they bought from some souvenir shop in Banawe. And because the weavers went ahead, I asked them to go inside the bus first. And suddenly they were like screaming and getting out of the bus, saying, "We're not hopping on that bus. You tell those white people to remove their to hide those death blankets. No, it's bad luck." So you see, there's still this I should say respect towards this object. That's traditionally it's a funerary blanket, and now also sold as a tourist item. To the Ifugaos, it still remains sacred.
Okay. There's another question from Rocky Kahigan. Does this mean that new patterns created by weavers are not sacred and therefore can be used for commercial purposes?
When we talk here about being sacred, it's it takes time. It takes generations for say a design to become embedded in the minds and hearts of people. If this is something new, then I don't think it would get its it would get to that level of sacredness, or would it be respected the way, let's say, if a weaver comes up with a new blanket design, would an Ifugao look at it the way he would look at abayang blanket, which was worn by his ancestors from like 10, 15 generations ago? So perhaps it would take certain time for a particular pattern, for a particular fabric to earn that to have that degree of respect or sacredness among the Ifugaos. Of course, we're not saying it doesn't. It's if it's contemporarily made and that people shouldn't respect it. Just that it's not. It wouldn't be as in the same level as those that were traditionally marked as Ifugao fabrics or Ifugao patterns.
Yeah, just follow up on that in relation to the iconography of textile designs. No, so I showed earlier some images of the textiles that are found in the storage of some museums, no, specifically here at the University of Michigan. So we found a pattern that resembles a man with a hat, no, yung parang it's a tinagtago, but it's a man with a hat, no, or a bowler hat. So would you say that this is of let's say influenced by external sources, no, to incorporate that design on a sacred blanket?
Of course, that's possible. That's very possible because the weaver is aside from basing their creations from customs. Of course, they are very much influenced by things that they see around them. Same thing as what I mentioned about younger weavers relying on Google, getting other patterns from other groups, imitating them, or like the lizard is designed on textiles among the Ifugaos hindi siya 3D, and now you get these lizard designs from other weaving communities na medyo iba yung but it's still the lizard, no? Well, it's a monitor lizard. So for as long as it maintains its character as it would look like a lizard, then yun pa rin ilalagay nila. Pero yung form niya, the execution would be totally different because they're influenced by something else, like mas maganda yata na ganito. And we often get that a lot from our weavers, so yeah.
Yeah, in relation to that, because I also looked at the arrangement, the iconography of the Ifugao textile patterns. No? So they follow a certain formulaic arrangements of collocation of the design arrangements. So if the weaver incorporates a different pattern in a sacred textile, does it decrease the sanctity or the potency of that particular sacred textile?
Actually does, yeah. You see, in the bayong blankets and the pinagpagan blankets, we have this in the lowest corner of the blanket. You would see a snake and a human figure.
Yeah.
Dun lang yun, no? If you remove that, then you cannot use that as a funerary blanket. Well, at least for Ifugaos now. So if you use the bayaong or the pinagpagan as a funerary textile, you have to make sure that those patterns are there. Parang hindi mo siya mapapansin if you're not familiar with the traditional design. But so every time the elders would buy or get a funerary blanket, they would have to check on the details. It changed something, like the arrangement of the patterns, or the presence or of patterns in a particular sacred blanket. You change that and you totally remove the cultural context. So yeah, that's actually how we test also the authenticity of our fabrics, no? So especially in the gamit. So we have what 16, 18 traditional textiles, from loincloths, bags, blankets, wraparound skirts, and if you change, like even if you change like the wide stripe of black, walang pattern yun, just the black color. If you change that into say purple, it would totally, even if it's just a small stripe of purple in 1 yard skirt, gamit skirt, it wouldn't be called a gamit anymore. Kasi may pinalitan ka na elemento nun. And they're very strict on that. Elders are very strict on that. So that's also actually the basis of how we're trying to come up with contemporary designs. So you say this is not a loincloth because the red is not in the middle. We placed like a yellow middle. So it's no longer the traditional bahag or the traditional loincloth of the Ifugao. Because all loincloths of the Ifugaos would need to have a red stripe in the middle. So you change the colors, you change the patterns. In fact, you change the thread count. So you change the entire context of the thing.
Okay. All right. So let's move to the board. There are other questions from our participants. From Amalia Ramirez from Mexico. Is there an Ifugao pattern or textile technique that could be considered as endangered?
Yeah, I think that would be it's not even ikat. We have more ikat weavers than balud weavers, the balud technique, a supplementary weft. In our organization, we have like 68 members, and there are only like 3 specializing in that particular technique. So I think that would be considered endangered as far as our organization is concerned. And I don't see it commonly used also by the Bontocs. Bontoc is just a neighboring town, so we trade a lot of our woven fabrics, and I don't see that also commonly used as a weaving technique in Mountain Province. So I think, well, as far as the Cordilleras in the Philippines is concerned, yeah, the balud technique, the supplementary weft would be considered endangered.
Okay. From Alvin Felix from Nueva Vizcaya. So there is a recognition from Ifugao ICC that the Kinutian is an Isinay cultural heritage.
I should ask you the question. Is there a recognition? Because the Isinay owning the West Pinutuan as their own first was I mean the Kinutian being Isinay is more popular than Kinutian being Ifugao. But mind you, Kinutian is an Ifugao word. The Isinay actually referred to it as West Pinutuan. Yes, it is a shared heritage among the Ifugaos and the Isinays. My grandmother would still be using the Kinutian as part of her funerary blankets. Now this because I've discussed a lot about this with Doc Ikino. We do share a lot with the Isinay in terms of weaving. I earlier showed a funerary loincloth of the Asipulu and the Kiangan people, which it's practically the loincloth of the Isinay, the traditional ikat loincloth of the Isinay. Every time you ask the elders in Asipulu why they would be wearing these ones when they die, they say because it's the loincloth of the ancestors. So hindi naman siguro tsamba na ganun yung that the Isinays have that as their loincloth. So as we're saying, we keep saying that the Ifugaos are actually a collection of different people from the lowlands who came up the mountains during the colonial era. And Aritao, Bambang, and Dupax, which is the Isinay homeland, is just a few mountains away from Asipulu. So yes, we do share a lot, although you lost more.
And trying to revive the ikat here. Okay, so we have a question from Bianca Domdom. Is the community open for collaboration session with local visual artists to come up with new or contemporary designs or patterns?
Yeah, of course, Bianca. We actually do that a lot pag may nagpupuntang artist dito. Sometimes it could be touchy, no? Kasi depende rin kung ano yung what your output, what output would you like to come up with, no? Sometimes we look at how they're doing things in Baguio, and it could sometimes it wouldn't be palatable to the Ifugaos. But most of the time, yeah, we do collaborate with a lot of outside artists from outside the province coming up here and trying to, express their artistic tendencies to weaving, or our weaving inspiring their art forms. So yes, since we consider weaving as an art form, there's nothing wrong with collaborating with other artists.
Okay, I think we're having on to the last question from Tony Ganal. So there's a question there: a dance igorot choreographed by national artist Agnes Loxane drew some flack on some people from the Cordillerans for female dancers using bahag as their costume. What are your thoughts about this being used in another art form like dance?
The initial reaction is like it's just the same reaction from every single Cordilleran, I think. What's that woman doing with the bahag? Because the bahag is for men. Now, of course, these photos are these photos of Ifugao women from the early 1900s wearing the bahag are posted on Facebook. And photos lang, walang context. Nasasabihin nila, no, it's not the first time that that the women are wearing bahag. But hey, come on, ang bahag ay bahag, para sa lalaki yan. Kailan pa and of course it's something new, no? Why if it becomes another way of expressing our contemporary feelings as artists, this is new, so you expect people to react, especially people who have traditional bahag cultures like the people of the Cordilleras. So the first reaction, actually, we showed that to our elders. It's not the first time though, no? It's not just Loxin having coming up with a play like that. In the 1990s, again, there was also, and there are more women using, it's a ballet performance with women wearing the bahag. And I was comparing the reaction. It's the same. Kung paano nag-react yung mga elders and members of the community in the 1990s, and how they reacted with was it last year or early this year? Ganon din yun. So there's still this disdain over, why would you let men wear the tapis? And of course, it's a metrosexual thing. Pero not as long as these things belong to certain groups like the Ifugaos or the Igorots of the other Cordillera region provinces. What if the typical Filipino male wears the barot saya? Okay lang, because it's an artistic expression. So medyo offensive pa rin yan, women using the bahag.
Okay, I think we have 3 more questions from our participants. From Diwa Malaya, what are the pressing issues Ifugao weavers are facing right now and that needs attention from the stakeholders?
Ifugao weavers in general. Well, mainly it's number one is the pricing of their products, and the marketing, of course. So as I've said, weavers don't weave to become rich. These are 99% of our weavers are actually trying to make ends meet, and sometimes they're put in a situation where they have no choice but to sell their woven items at a very low price, rather than not getting any money at all. So, and of course, a lot of buyers would take advantage of that. na baratilyo na lang lahat. But that's what we're trying to help. That we're trying to help them come up with more quality woven products and bringing it to buyers who who understand the process, who understand the difficulty of weaving or coming up with these hand-woven fabrics. So we don't bring hand-woven fabrics to Divisory, di ba? But why not? Sana kung hindi babaratin. Of course, because if you bring it to Divisory, people would think, pwede itong tawaran ng, say, instead of paying for 500 pesos, pwede pa hanggang 50. So we're trying to find the right market for our weavers. We're also on our end, we're trying to let them use quality threads or quality materials to come up with, of course, more superior products that would also minimize the tawad tendency of many buyers. If you see that a product is actually good, and then you would feel more embarrassed to haggle for a lower price. So improving their output and fetching a higher price for it. That's the goal of our organization, and to address this the situation where the weavers are in, economics, basically economics.
Okay, we have two more questions, one from J. Matias regarding the Ifugao textiles and designs, imitated, copied, printed, mass-produced that are circulating in the market today. Is there an active action or perhaps talks between the government or law enforcement agencies and our Ifugao weavers or weaving associations to address this particular issue?
Yes, actually, the first time that came out, these things came out because we noticed that one provincial festival, it was maybe 5 years ago. We used to get a lot of orders for our weavers for traditional attires like skirts and blankets. Then suddenly during that period, walang umorder. So, and then during the parade, entire municipal delegations numbering up to 300 to 400 participants were wearing all these printed things.
Oh no.
And that's how I realized how this can totally damage the entire weaving industry. Struggling na nga eh. Tapos papasok na naman itong mga kapitalista na to. Because you cannot have those things printed like 2 yards, 3 yards lang. As a minimum. Because the first merchant to actually had that printed had it printed in Thailand for a minimum of 500,000 worth of order. So may pera lang ang pwedeng gumawa ng mga yan, no? Tapos pababagsakin na naman itong mga weavers. So we actually asked the governor then to for his action, pero hindi masyadong responsive noon. The next administration, we talked to one of our legislators, board member Joseph Guguin, actually the former mayor of Kiangan, if we can come up with a legislation to regulate the entry of these things here. And not only in Ifugao, moves are also being done in Baguio. So we have these weavers organizations in Baguio asking the city council to actually ban the selling of these things in Baguio. Baguio is, of course, harder to regulate because there would be more sellers of this type. And andaling kasing andaling maloko rin yung buying public. They would think that it is. Yeah, you can go online, Shopee, Lazada. You can see all these. They call it Cordillera fabrics or Igorot fabrics, and you say these are actually printed. So why buy something worth 800 when you can buy it at 80 pesos, di ba? Filipino mentality yun eh. So pipiliin nila yung mas mura. It's actually destroying the continuity of our heritage din. All these printed things. So we are sometimes we're very watchful dun sa mga tao na if they come to the center, because we have a weaving center and have the galleries, and they want to take like detailed photos of the traditional fabrics. You're like, okay, so what do you do? Hindi ka ba nag-preprint? Because probably there'd be, but that kailangan mo ng detailed copy of the entire thing. Papaprint mo. So yes, there are there are legislations, there are laws coming in, protecting our handwoven fabrics, our genuine handwoven textiles, and of course our weavers.
Okay, last two from at Murillo. Number one, do you offer ikat workshops? And number two, do you have online shops where we can order your textiles?
Do you offer ikat workshops? Depends. Do you have an ikat background? Last time when CordiTex actually asked us if we can, and Habi, the Philippine Textile Council asked us if we can do ikat training for non-Ifugaos, and said who are the participants, and these are Isinais, Bukalot, Bontoks, Kamkanaes. Probably within, it was not okay at first with our senior weavers. They were like, ikat, our binadbodan is ours, so why do we need to teach it to them? And we're like, because they also used to have it, but they lost it. So maybe it's also our responsibility to, if they want to reclaim an old practice, maybe we can help them. So they gave consideration to that. Only because they learned that the Isinais also have an ikat culture in the past. Same with the Bontoks. The Bontoks still make use of ikat funerary garments, and actually that's how they don't bury their dead in Bontok, because they can't bury them without the ikat. How do you call that? Their ikat garments, and they're like, okay,
funerary.
Yeah. So they thought, yeah, maybe we need to teach them. So Auntie Benita was like, yeah, but only for them. I don't know if it's our senior weavers are quite protective with sharing. And there's no problem if they share it to their fellow Ifugaos. But sharing it to people outside the culture area, it would take a lot more convincing.
But just weaving without ikat, do you offer basic?
Yes, of course, yes. And the other weaving techniques, we know that everybody knows it outside. A lot of people know it outside Ifugao, so yeah, we do. With a minimum group of participants of like 5, we can ask our senior weavers to be their teachers actually. But if you're coming from outside, then you have to pay a minimal fee for our weavers, because for local members of the community, they actually give the training for free.
Okay, last question. Do you have online shops where they can buy or order your textiles?
www.ifugaonation.com. Thank you for asking.
All right. Okay. So I think we wrap up our discussion for this morning. We thank Marlon for being with us this morning. And siguro, maybe you can tell them some last words about the Ifugao Textiles.
Yeah. 10 years ago, when we came up with the organization, the main purpose was actually for heritage conservation. Kasi uso ang heritage conservation, di ba? We save the terraces, we save the bulu, we save the hagabi, we save the textile din. So, and actually the main purpose in why we organized the Weavers Association was because one of the problems, or one of the causes why people are leaving the terraces, because they're not getting enough economic benefit from it, So we are the Save the Ifugao Terraces movement. It's an organization of volunteers actually trying to help save the fast deterioration of the Ifugao Terraces. It's a World Heritage Site, but of course we know that the primary the persons primarily responsible for its upkeep and its maintenance and its continuity would be the Ifugaos themselves. Now, if the Ifugaos start leaving their terraces because it's not enough to send their children to school or even to feed them, then you do not blame the Ifugao. But we found little ways of resolving this problem. So we're like, okay, so we do have some arts and crafts that can actually be economically viable for our farmers. So number one there would be, of course, we have wood carving, we have basketry, and many of our women in the villages, in the rice terraces villages, are actually weavers. So we thought of why don't we do, like, encourage them to go back into weaving. And we said, oh, but weaving is still there, but they don't gain much from weaving. So we checked the market, we checked on how much the souvenir shops buy the weaving from the weavers, and it's actually very cheap. So the reason why a lot of them also abandon weaving, kasi hindi masyadong. So we look at how the potential of increasing the price of woven textiles. We checked on the quality of the thread, on the market itself. Because if you keep on coming up with table runners for the souvenir shops in Banawe, then of course you don't expect the value of your woven product to be that high. So even during the early 2000s, a table runner, which is about 3.25 yards, 18 inches in width, would only cost about 200 pesos. That's the souvenir shop buying it from the weaver, and they sell it to tourists for 500, 600. So of course, lugi si weaver. So we thought of coming up with something else, come up with something more creative that could be something that could be more expensive. So they get to earn more than 200. No? And that's what we did. We improved the quality of weaving. We improved the quality of the fabric, actually. Even in ikat, we trained them to make use of color fixers instead of observing because we have a spiritual way of keeping the colors. Scientifically improving the output. And it helped a lot, actually, so in the marketing. So you'd have ikat fabrics. Well, if you bought some ikat table runner in 1995, probably it would have faded already. No? But if you buy it now with weavers knowing how to use color fixers, then it would last much longer. So of course, mas mahal yun, diba? Kasi it's more durable. So anyway, that's supporting our weavers is also, it's not just being patrons of the art. It's not just being collectors of nice looking fabrics or textiles. You're actually helping people. You're actually helping rice terraces farmers. You're sending children to school. You're sending you're helping conserve the rice terraces. Kahit masyadong parang indirect yung but it helps a lot in improving the earning capacity of our farmers by buying woven textiles, because a lot of our, if not most of our weavers are also actually farmers of the rice terraces. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Marlon, again for those kind words to our participants and potential enthusiasts for the ikat blankets in Kiangan. So there's a little shop in Kiangan where you could buy. They also have a Facebook page called Ifugao Nation, and also the website Ifugao Nation. You can just log in and help support our local weavers in Kiangan, and of course their families around the terraces. Okay, so I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Marlon, for your time this morning, and thank you for our participants who attended and participated actively in the discussion. Okay, thank you, Manong. Okay,
Thank you.
see you soon. Okay, bye-bye.